Okay, so let's have a look at the Wild and Sacred Feminine deck, which is what I'm doing my review on. It's a 52 card deck by Nikki Duart, Elizabeth Margolin, and Jenny Kostecki-Shaw. And the theme of this deck is the Sacred Feminine. So in it, you have the guidebook and the cards. This is the box it comes in. So the guidebook is full color and gloss. It comes with a dedication to women and a poem. And then it goes into the introduction. And the introduction is talking about how this card sort of showcases the archetypes of the sacred feminine. It also has spreads, which I highly recommend because they are really great and they utilize the deck to its potential. So I thought the deck really worked well with those. And then you've got the 4 subjects. So you've got the wild feminine, the elemental feminine, archetypal feminine, and the divine feminine. Now, the one issue with this is that the colors of the page were reversed for 2 of them. So even though this is meant to be divine feminine, it was swapped with animals. And for the divine feminine, it was put in green. So it's not meant to be green. As you can see, Pachamama was meant to have the red. So they did swap those colors around. But otherwise, it's a great book. You've got the title of the card, the keyword, the shadow or the reversed keyword, a quote, and then you've got sort of about the card and the imagery or the goddess or whatever the theme is, and then sort of like a divinatory meaning here. And it's like that for all the cards. So the cards themselves, these are the backs. They are not edged, and the cardstock is this very matte, papery kind of cardstock, and I really hate it. I'll talk about the deck while I show you what I paired it with. So for me, I decided to pair this with the Herb Crafters Tarot because I wanted a really earthy element to it. And I also paired it with the Home Oracle because I thought it picked up a lot of the colors. This deck has a lot of greens, reds, blues and yellows in it, and I thought they suited visually. So I cannot stand the cardstock. It is really sharp on my fingers. It also feels like it dries my hands out when I use it, which I know sounds odd, but I'm at this point in my life where I'm quite sensitive to physical sensations and I don't want anything that is unpleasant to the feel. And unfortunately, this cardstock is, like, I really hate touching it. And I would actually just fan it out because I don't even want to shuffle. So that is the biggest downside to me. In terms of the theme, I think that is really cool. It feels very goddess-ish. I guess that's maybe the sacred feminine coming through, but it has a goddess sort of energy to it. The guidebook is well written. It's not one that I would really use for divinatory purposes. You could probably just use the keyword and apply that to your divination practices, but for me this is more of a study deck, and in that I mean that it's a deck that I will work my way through in its entirety and then I will move it on. So it's not something that I plan on keeping in my collection. I feel like once I've gone through all of the entries and I've read everything and I've done everything, I will no longer want to refer back to it in the future. The artwork is lovely. I don't mind the artwork. It's not like 100% to my taste, but you know, it's nice. It's pleasant. I wasn't really getting a lot from the imagery itself, but I would pick up on things that may be correlated to the surrounding cards. So yeah, for instance, with inspiration and the emperor and balance, I might say what sticks out to me, and it's yellow and it's the moon, it's the flower, and the yellow rose petals. So I will consider that like sacral energy and the moon and all that sort of thing. I would see what correlated between the cards rather than just looking at single elements of the cards. I looked at it more as a whole than as a singular thing. So this, like I said, worked really well with its spreads. I suggest you do those if you get this deck. I think they're definitely worth doing. As far as these worked together, I thought they worked really well. Color-wise, there was definitely elements that I think were really cohesive and complementary. In terms of the messages, I think they were pretty full on. So here you have fluidity with 4 of Wands and faith. And for instance, here you have mastery with presence and the Hanged One. So I did find the decks worked really well together, and I enjoyed the messages. I didn't really love using it though as just like a daily pull for the day. I found like I did have to have sort of guided pulls rather than just a what's your message for me today. This worked better with an intention, especially anything to do with sacred feminine, obviously goddess work, or like what aspect of me needs attention right now. I thought that worked well as well. Or for instance, what should I express more? And it'll be like gratitude, the sun, and vision. So I'm definitely not going to be keeping this in my collection. I will be moving it on once I have had more time with it. I've only used it for 1 week every day, but I think about a month's worth of work, and once I've made sure I've done every page in the guidebook, I will be rehoming it. I think for me too, the biggest thing is just the cardstock. I just know once I've gotten all I can from it, that I'm not going to want to physically pick it up again, which is a shame. So that might be something I need to look out for if this lists what type of cardstock this is, not to get any decks that have it, because I feel like I'm paper cutting myself every time I use it. And like I said, my fingers feel like they're drying out, which is bizarre, but it is what it is. So that was the Wild and Sacred Feminine deck. And I hope that wherever you are having a wild morning, afternoon, or evening. And as always, stay wild, Star Child.